Hello and welcome to our latest podcast for the University of St Andrews Scotland's Future series. And today we've got a really pertinent and relevant issue that's been led by two of our students at the University of St Andrews. I've been joined today by Svenja Schultz, who is a second year management and international relations student who's originally from Germany, and Hayden Surratt, who's a second year economics and international relations student from Texas in the United States. Now, really interesting today. The students have been looking at how can students have a voice in the policy making process. So in the Scotland's Future podcast, obviously, we're looking at how we can have productive and respectful debate, how we influence the world around us. And this strikes me as a really fascinating topic that you guys are pursuing, really interesting project. Svenja, I'm going to talk to you a little bit. I'm going to ask you to just introduce us to your project overall in a moment. However, this project emerged from a successful St Andrews Global Challenges project, and Hayden and Svenja were winners in the Global Challenges project. So, Hayden, can you tell us a little bit about your Global Challenges project and why this has led to this project?
Yes, so the Global Challenge program is run every year through the School of International Relations, and it focuses on one very broad global issue. And so the issue last year when we did our project was how we can make policymaking more evidence-based so it can react to crises in a more timely and efficient and effective manner. Yeah. And so we started around January when we put together our initial proposal, starting to look at different voter data and also try identifying gaps in the policymaking process by looking at different political systems in Scotland, the broader UK, Germany. And from that, we got together our initial application, which we were thinking about a policy journal or / think tank that could work to engage both the local community and academics and government, kind of this three kind of triangle, which we felt would help initiate more trust between the government, so the public could have a more see really what's going on behind the scenes. Academics can make their voice heard more, and so after our initial application, we accepted as finalists, and that's when we started actually working with you, Stephen, for and developing the idea further and further. And we finally came down to our final project was a St. Andrews Journal for Emergency Policy, Emergency and Scientific Policy, which that broad idea was essentially a journal in which we both, which has two sides, a outward-facing public side and a side that works to address policymakers by writing policy papers. And so we, and how both those work is that academics and students will come together, research an issue, develop policy papers, and then send that to policymakers to address. And then then we'll take that same information, all the scientific jargon, kind of slim it down to a place which the public can understand. And that was kind of the core idea. And so how now the project we're doing now kind of built off of that, very similar links. So really what we've been thinking about since we won it for the last few months is how we can actually make that really implementable and actually have change, because it sounds all great, but it is quite an ambitious project that has lots of moving parts and may not be actually that practical. And so from the last few months, we've really rethought about how we can make it implementable in St. Andrews and how it can all work. Which now Sonia wants to talk about.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And actually, we're going to come back to that about how we make it relevant and make it work and engaging students and academics in that. But Sven, you're just building on what Hayden's talking about there. Can you tell us a little bit about the project for the Scotland's Future series that builds on the Global Challenges project? Give us a little bit of an introduction to that, please.
Yes, sure. So we have now decided to call this or establish the Political Institute of Action Research, really focusing on action research here. So having, or like how we thought this would work best probably, and in an efficient way for us as students here, we thought that the way to go forward is to become affiliated as a society, and then to work together with the union and the students here, and like kind of use that platform. And kind of what we were thinking is to bring students together in the form of that society at the beginning of next semester, then decide on an issue that everyone is passionate about, kind of have a debate going on and like what we want to focus on, then really narrow it down for a semester, have a have a targeted goal on what we want to achieve that semester, and then do a lot of research in that particular issue, whatever that might be. And then also in terms of that, organize events, bring together stakeholders, like bring in the public, bring in local residents, bring in non-governmental organizations, bring in policymakers, and really like focus on whatever that issue might be, anyone that might be relevant to that, and like forming an opinion and forming in the end a policy paper. And then advocating for that at the end of the semester, once we've come to a result of what we think as like a collective after months of research, what should be done.
This is really interesting, and it's really interesting when you've got the university as an area of expertise, you've got the policymaking process, they often seem like a long way away from each other. Tell me something, from either of you. Why does the policymaking process matter? Why should people care about it? What would be your answer to that? Hayden, I'll come to you first, then I'll come to you, Svenja.
I think it's very important to see how policy is actually created, because there's many different steps, and there can many things that can go wrong and many gaps. It's a very complicated process, and so I think it's really important for people, and especially students who want to make change, to start to familiarize themselves with that process, so they can see how it works. They can see where they can actually maybe try making a difference, see maybe how their talents can complement different parts of the policy making process, whether it's activism or a consulting role or other than that. And so it's kind of very good to have an overview of how the policymaking process works, so you can identify which areas you can most make a difference if you want to make change.
So I'll ask you a similar question, Svenja. So if you're trying to persuade other students why they should care about this and why they should be involved in your project, tell me, why?
Change. It's as easy and simple as that. I feel like we talk a lot and we have a lot of thoughts and opinions on what should be done and how we personally think we can make an impact. Mm-hmm. And our project is the way to do that, hopefully at least. So yeah, I think it's really important to be engaging in like what you think is important. And in the end, the policy making process, that is how you're going to make that change happen. And like that's in the end that, you know, like everything will have to go to actually like foster change and bring about that change long term. You will need a policy change, or you'll need like policy to back up whatever you think is relevant. Yes, I think that's the way forward, and that's why we should be engaged in the policy-making process.
Okay, so tell me, what are some of the issues that you might be interested in then? I mean, I know that you both talked about that you need to speak to people, choose an issue. What do you think? And you're getting the same question in a minute, Dana, but Sven, you just build on that. Tell me about some of the issues that you think are important, that you think other students should be worried about at the moment, or you'd like to talk to them about coming up. Where does change need to happen?
So I think one main aspect, what we see around the world everywhere now, is climate change and sustainability. Like that's definitely on the top of my agenda. That those are the two things that are really, really important to me. And I feel like we need to make change, and we need to make it fast in order to bring about, to save this planet for future generations to come. So I think that for me, that's like one of the big issues. But then in the end, like our institute is supposed to be about like what the local residents, what the local students care about. So it's it's going to be a decision-making process in which issue is actually going to be chosen, but that's what I would propose.
Good. Okay. So we've got climate change. What local stakeholders should be interested in. Hayden, anything else?
Yeah,
what
so
do you think?
kind of building on kind of the local part, that is going to be a big project, and something that came up also in a Global Challenge research is that change does start at the local level. And so one issue which springs to mind for me is maybe the cost of living here in St. Andrews. It's kind of a bubble in that it has the same kind of cost of living as the center of London. And so how we can maybe address that for students from lower income backgrounds, how can we do more to help them? And so that's kind of an issue that springs to mind, but also just seeing, once we get like a group of people together of all different backgrounds, then really seeing what issues are important to them, and how they want to see St. Andrews change for the better, or nationally. So.
Okay, so really looking at that old adage that all politics is local, and building from that. And do you think when you're talking about these global issues like climate change and sustainability, but also, and you're quite right to talk about the cost of living. So tell me a little bit about your plans to engage with the local community then, because if all politics is local, university, you're part of the local community in St. Andrews, and Fife, and beyond. So talk to me a little bit, Hayden, about your plans to why should the local community engage with you?
St. Andrews is in a very unique spot, how pretty much the town is very tied to the university, and I feel like one complements the other very often. And so I feel like with locals engaging with us, they engage with a big part of the wider town, and so that's how I feel, and why locals should engage with us, and why we should work with the local community, because St. Andrews is the university and kind of the local town. So that's kind of why I was thinking of how to try to convince locals to be a part of what we do, and then we can plan events around that, such as volunteering with the local community to help students engage with the local community on and give the given issue, or also hosting guest speakers to talk, maybe from the local area or around Scotland or elsewhere, and inviting locals to also have the opportunity to listen to these speakers as well. So kind of trying to bring everyone together.
Good, so bringing everybody together.
Yes.
Svein, you tell me, what other kind of stakeholders, who else would you hope would engage with you apart from students and people who might live in St. Andrews? Who else do you want to talk to?
I mean, I feel like it doesn't end with St. Andrews.
Okay.
It's about Fife, it's about Scotland.
Yeah.
In the end, and I feel like that's a unique position that we're in. Also, that our student community is so diverse, and we're from all different countries. I mean, right now it's an American and a German speaking to you about Scotland's future, you know. But I feel like, again, like that's the unique situation that we're in, that everything that we are discussing here in like this little bubble of St. Andrews, it has a wider impact, and things, again, that are discussed on a local level, those not only matter for St. Andrews, those matter for Anstruther, they matter for the next town, one over, kind of, where, yeah, like what we do here is not where the whole thing ends, and like we would be very interested to be engaging with like the Fife community and even wider Scotland community. Again, like depending on what issue we're choosing, I feel like that's when we can really figure out who exactly our stakeholders are. But again, yeah.
And so tell me, you touched upon St. Andrews being very international. It is very international. Does that help your work, and how does it help your work?
I definitely think it helps the work.
Yeah.
Because like in every scenario, like wherever I've traveled before, wherever I've lived before, people had such different outlooks on life, but such interesting takes and such interesting opinions that have been formed through their life experiences. And I feel like that here in this university setting, that's also what we can really draw on, a lot of people that like have opinions about what's going on in the world and have their knowledge. And I feel like that's what we should be taking advantage of. Like that's what we should be drawing on, all those experiences and all that knowledge that is combined here in St. Andrews.
That you capture here. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and just in terms of the community, how would you see that engagement between the very localised community, and you're right, communities in Anstruther and Dundee and elsewhere as well St. Andrews, how would you see that yourselves building that interaction, encouraging that interaction
between different local communities?
Yeah.
I feel like we can kind of be the kind of, I guess, the middleman, to speak. That's the first analogy that comes to mind between local communities. How if we do decide to expand, if it really works here, and if we can really, or for a given issue, if it's important to have other local communities, their input too, then we're kind of that bridge between St. Andrews local community and the other one. We will hopefully have the resources to be able to connect these two communities. We can really, we can organize events to bring these communities together. And so it still comes down at the end of the day, we're just bringing people together.
So bringing people together, what, to build your knowledge, to build your expertise? Okay, let me ask you this question, both of you. Policymakers, really busy,
Yes.
Lots of different issues going on, right? Why should they listen to you?
I would say they get a condensed version of all the research and all the talking that we've been doing on their part almost. Like everything that we have gathered over those months of research, we'll be able to present in one paper. And then like that, I feel like it's going to be reasonable to like look at and listen to, and then again like get in contact with us if they like need any more backup or follow up on that.
Okay.
But I feel like what we do is like really engaging with all these different groups that might not be possible for every single policymaker. So in that case, we step in, and that's why it's valuable to be listening to all these different opinions.
So you're doing some of the listening. Okay. Aidan, do you want to build on that a little bit?
Yeah, so when we're bringing together different local communities or just the local community of St. Andrews, we kind of have a place where we can kind of formulate everyone's opinions in one area based on where it is. And so if the local member of parliament or the member of Scottish Parliament comes, then they can speak to the local community. We can help organize that event, so we can have essentially multiple communities or multiple policymakers come and actually listen to the people. And then building off of what Svenja was saying, we can provide some of the academic research from St. Andrews to help maybe inform the decision, which is also augmented by the views and the wants of the local community, which I think is very valuable for policymakers. It kind of gives them a direct access to the constituents and what they want, and as well as some functional and policy that they can try to implement.
Okay, so tell me something. So we're doing this podcast today. There are people listening from around the university. What's your message to them about why they should get involved and what to expect next? What would you guys say here? You've got the floor.
If you are interested in any sort of issue, if you want to start engaging with politics and the policymaking process, if you want to make meaningful change, and not just the university, but the local community and even maybe beyond, then we're definitely the people to do it. And so please come on board, share your opinions, start getting involved, and start working to make actionable change in St. Andrews and the broader community.
Svenja?
Yeah, adding to that, I'd say, please get engaged if there's anything that you care about, that you want to see implemented, that you want to advocate for. Come to us, share your opinions, share your thoughts, and work with us.
And what about not just for students, what about for other members of the university community? Is anybody else you want to hear from?
Yes, academics definitely, because I think they have much more knowledge than us students, and so their expertise is invaluable when trying to address an issue. They probably have the experience to know what works or what doesn't, what we might miss. So academics definitely, and pretty much just anyone who's involved with the university or part of this community. And so we'd love to hear your opinion on the different issues and how you think they should be solved, or we might miss issues. So it's important to kind of have everyone involved and engage with everyone.
So what are the next steps then?
Next step is become affiliated with the union officially. And then next semester, full force ahead, figure out who wants to be part of our institute, and focus on an issue, decide on an issue, and then really go from there and decide who we want to engage with, what events we want to host, and who we can gather together. Yeah.
So people are going to look for more information about this. Anything they should look for just now?
The best way is probably emailing either of us, or my email is hcs9@standrews.ac.uk, and Svenja, what's
sds22@st-andrews.ac.uk.
That's great. Do you want to repeat that again?
Yes, hcs9@st-andrews.ac.uk.
And for me, SDS22, and then the same at the back. Yeah.
So the message is, please get involved.
Yes.
You're here to facilitate. You're here to listen. Yeah. You're wanting ideas.
Yes.
About
Absolutely.
issues. Yeah, you're wanting to engage.
Issues, how best to engage with a certain demographic of people, everything. Just we're open to ideas because we really feel like that will inform our decision making further.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a really good start today. Thank you both for coming in and for sharing this initiative with us. And so I hope everybody will get involved. You've got the contact details. Please look out for what's going on the Political Institute of Action Research, Political Institute of Action Research with Svenja and Hayden. And good luck with all your work, guys. Thanks so much for coming along.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for listening in today. And do get involved with these guys. We've got some great ideas and a great way of engaging. Thank you.